Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason. I'm here to bring us the retrospective from Munhoz versus Edgar and to look ahead to Smith versus Rakic. Looking back at the past week, we did all right. We had a 55.56% accuracy. Let's just call it 56% for what it is. We did okay. We ended up going 5-4 on the night, so not too bad. There were only 9 fights. And not too disappointed. We got above the 50% accuracy points, so that's big. And we also nailed a lot of the underdogs like Frankie Edgar and that plus 200 money over on Patreon. So we actually had a really good week despite just the 55%. We were definitely in the money with the picks. Let's get into it though. Here's the show. All right, let's kick things off with Frankie Edgar versus Pedro Munhoz. So in this one, it was a split decision call for Edgar, and it was really, really close. And a lot of people, I think, did argue that Munhoz could have won that one. He did outstrike Edgar by about 30 shots. But the tail of the tape here is those takedowns. I think Edgar did his best damage with his takedowns and proved that they were able to make statements in the rounds when he needed them. I said it on the podcast before. I thought the takedowns would be enough of Edgar's game to outdo Munhoz, especially in the points department. Picking up those takedowns a lot of times cements the round, and I think that's what we saw here. However, you can argue it either way. Edgar also took some damage in the fight. Let's not beat around the bush in this one. It did go all 5 rounds, and it was fight of the night, getting the $50K bonus for both these guys. But I think Edgar ultimately did edge it out. It was just razor thin. It wasn't a robbery, and it was a solid win by Edgar. Also, now talking about the MMA community, what's next for Edgar? Well, some people are calling he could be a 135-pound champion. Hey, totally possible. This guy has been a title holder before, so we can't count out the answer Edgar. But a lot of people are also calling out potentially Dominic Cruz fight next, which, if we're talking about him being champ, I like that fight. I like that fight for Cruz for legacy. I like that fight for Edgar for legacy as well. I also like the fact that Cruz just fought for the belt against Cejudo, the former champion, 135 pounds. And so to fight a guy at the, kind of the top ranking in Cruz, who's also a veteran, that's a good way for Edgar to make a statement further up the rankings here against a guy I think he matches up very well with. They have not similar fighting styles entirely, but there's a lot of striking with takedown elements mixed in for a well-rounded MMA fighter. Obviously, their footwork being very different. But I like that matchup a lot. I do hope that actually is a fight that they call. I think both guys would be into it, and it feels like a good, solid money fight for both of them as well, considering they'd be a good main event draw, I think, in that one. Or solid co-main undercard. I think it's a good fight nevertheless. Anyways, we'll see how it plays out, though. We did get it right, though, at Edgar picking up a win over Munhoz. The next one, we got correct. Mike Rodriguez defeats Marcin Pacinio. So in this one, it's pretty short. 2 minutes in, Rodriguez clips him with an elbow and scores a KO. Mike Rodriguez looked, solid the entire 2 minutes, though. Pacinio just scoring a few shots in there didn't look super effective, but solid win for Rodriguez and ourselves nevertheless. Next one, Selecki defeats Austin Hubbard. I had called it out on the podcast. Even though Austin Hubbard was able to break a man in Roshkov, I thought Selecki would be his undoing, and that is exactly how it played out, with Selecki picking up the rear naked choke late in the first round, 3 minutes and 51 seconds. A solid pick for us. Next one, a solid loss for the world, I think, honestly. Shayna Dobson goes out and defeats Mariana Agapova. So nobody had this called, I'm pretty sure. Agapova was a minus 1,200, so you weren't going to be catching her on my Patreon or anything like that. I think it was a stupid bet, especially minus 1,200, with those kind of terrible payout odds. And Agapova just did not perform. She came out, I think she was going to steamroll Dobson, came out really aggressive, put the pace on high, and then did not have the gas tank or the wherewithal to maintain that kind of output. And Dobson basically got her to crumble early into the second round, hit her with a great shot that put her down, and she picked up performance of the night money, making one of the biggest upsets that we've seen recently, especially in women's MMA, coming from that great money you could have made on Dobson if you took a chance. So solid win for her, shut down a bit of a hype train. Agapova will be back, though. I think this is a real learning opportunity for her, but hopefully she'll get something out of it. And good for Dobson, man. She's staying in the UFC. She's hanging in. So solid win for Dobson. Loss for us, and honestly, just about everybody that made that call. The next one, not too much to talk about here either. Daniel Rodriguez, well, I guess there is a little bit to talk about. Daniel Rodriguez was getting defeated by Dwight Grant. He clipped him with a great shot early on. This thing ends at only 2.5 minutes, really. But Grant basically punches himself out, is not able to close the door on Rodriguez. Rodriguez gets back to feet, clips a very tired and exhausted Grant from punching himself out, manages to shut his lights out, and ends up getting called. I honestly think that maybe the fight could have been called against Rodriguez, but he just kept working. He kept, responding to the referee when he said to defend himself, and he just hung on there long enough to get a win. Great show of toughness, great show to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat and to stand up in the face of adversity. So hats off to Daniel Rodriguez. He put on a spectacular performance, and we actually got that one incorrect. Grant was the pick originally, so hey, he snatched a win from us for sure. And the next one we did get correct. Amanda Lemos defeats Mizuki Inoue. It was actually Lemos leading the way on the takedowns here, even though Inoue had the big submission background coming in here. Lemos scores the takedowns, isn't in danger too much, and ends up outstriking her 83-57 to pick up a unanimous victory, which was solid for us. And then next one, Jordan Wright defeats Ike Villanueva. This was a call by us. We liked Jordan Wright in this one, and he picks up a knockout 90 seconds in. In the next two here, Carlos Minus, Matthew Smelsberger. We had called Minus in that debut bout. Smelsberger ends up picking up a win, though, and outstriking, outhandedly, fighting Minus. So, hey, we got that one incorrect, but those debut fights are hard to call. And then to round things out, one that we did get incorrect as well, Trevin Jones defeats Timur Valiev, and in this one, I think everybody had Valiev picked. Valiev was winning the fight. He was outstriking him 66-26, and then Trevin Jones in the second round making that big comeback and scoring a great shot to basically shut down Valiev. So we end up getting that one incorrect with the Valiev loss. So like I said, 56% accuracy is what we came in on the night, so not too bad, but we did get some good underdog picks. I think Lemos ended up at even money, Edgar plus 200, and then I want to say we had Grant as well on the Patreon, and that obviously didn't work out, but it was so close. So we did well overall. We finally, we're back in the positives here, and we're looking forward to Rakic versus Smith. So let's get into that part of the show. All right, so let's talk about the main event of the night, which is going to be Anthony Lionheart Smith taking on Alexander Rakic. Now, up until Rakic's loss to Ozdemir, this guy looked like a phenomenal talent, and honestly, he still does, whereas we've seen Anthony Smith on a decline really ever since he fought Jones. He did beat Gustafsson, but he had that tragic, I'm calling it tragic, the guy had his teeth knocked out of his mouth in his loss to Glover Teixeira, a fight that I think everybody thought Anthony Smith was going to win. Glover's been creating a lot of upsets recently, and he actually has a great fight coming up against Thiago Santos to prove that he's still top of the heap in regards to light heavyweight division. But let's kick it back here to Anthony Smith. I like Smith, okay, but I don't see him winning this fight. I don't think he's going to be able to deal with the dynamic striking very well of Rakic. We've seen Rakic make mincemeat out of everybody except for Ozdemir, and Ozdemir being the power puncher that he is, I think held a better chance to defeat Rakic rather than Smith. Smith's not a crazy power puncher. He's a very well-rounded volume guy. He's got a decent gas tank, but I think that Rakic is going to be able to outmatch him, and I think he's going to be able to defeat him. Now, neither one of these guys are takedown experts, so I don't expect Smith to be getting it to the mat to wear him out. I think he's going to try to stand up, fight him on the feet, maybe push it to the cage, take away that ranginess. We got a 2-inch reach advantage on Rakic, but honestly, I see Rakic's superior kickboxing being the pathway to victory here. I think that he's going to score a couple head kicks. I think that he's going to kick the shins off of Smith, and I think his hook and his straight are going to be there to connect to the body and the head at will. Honestly, I see this being pretty one-sided. I think Rakic goes out there and proves that Anthony Smith is on the decline and may never reach the upper echelons of the division again. I know it's a bold statement, but sometimes you got to go bold. We're going with Rakic in this contest. All right, moving on to the next one here. We're going to have the ruthless Robbie Lawler take on Neil Magny, and this is going to be an amazing contest. But I think, honestly, the higher fight IQ is going to go with Magny here, and I'm going to give him the edge. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage. He has a great body of work, and I think he has the mental wherewithal to stay out of a brawl, okay? Robbie Lawler, maybe his fight IQ is leaning towards the brawling side. He knows he has the edge there, a la the Roy McDonald contest that he's had in the past. He takes a lot of damage, though. I think Magny can exploit the amount of damage that he's taken in his career and fight a very intelligent, well-rounded fight. Magny has great striking. It's at least on par with Lawler, but if Lawler beats him into a brawl, then obviously we got to side it back to Lawler. He's the king of the brawl, generally at 170 pounds. Then we got to kick it over to the takedown game. That's where Magny has the ability to really shut down Lawler, I think. His ability to score takedowns is much higher, I think, than Lawler. Lawler basically wants to stand and bang. If Magny can introduce him into the full world, the full body of mixed martial arts, he can give Lawler his 4th loss in a row. Now, Lawler isn't going to be cut. I can't imagine, he'll be, getting shuffled out of the UFC if he takes another loss. But it could be time to retire for Robbie Lawler. I believe he's 38 years of age. He's getting up there. He has losses to Dos Anjos, Askren, and Covington. The Askren being loss being, questionable at best. And his last win was back against Donald Cerrone. So it's been a while for Lawler. And then before that, it's when he lost the title to Woodley. So Lawler not being the most active guy these days, but still fairly active, especially for his age. And I'm a Robbie Lawler fan, if you can't tell. I like the guy. I just think his time is kind of done. Magny's in his prime. He's ready to rock and roll. And I believe that he's going to be able to pick up a win over Lawler. If he uses his entire toolkit, he'll be able to outdo the Ruthless One in Vegas. We are picking Neil Magny to pick up a win in this contest. All right, moving on to the next one. We're going to have an interesting ladies flyweight matchup with Alexa Grasso taking on Ji Leon Kim, I believe, the South Korean fighter. So this is going to be an interesting fight. Both of these fighters have very, very good striking. They do have some submission work to the record, but they are primarily... Actually, Grasso has no submission victories. Only Kim does. But they both primarily keep it standing and like to exchange on the feet. And I think, honestly, Kim has a slight advantage there. Obviously, there are the submissions in her background that could be her bread and butter there, but I think her striking is a little more developed. When you saw her in the Nadia Kasim fight, she looked very, very good, and, she wasn't able to defeat Antonia Shevchenko in her fight before that, but she was looking really good coming into the UFC, wins over Fabian and Kish. Whereas we look over at Grasso, last loss to Carla Esparza, did beat Colville Cages, lost to Suarez, kind of back and forth. Really a 50-50 fighter, and even though she should be winning next, I don't think she's going to be able to do it. I think Kim is going to be able to basically out-kickbox her. Grasso's boxing is very good, but if she can really tie in those leg kicks, take away her ability to really plant on the feet, I think that she can deal with the pressure of Grasso, and I think that she can win this fight. So, I am picking Kim as the official pick in this contest. All right, our next one here is going to be a redo, where you're going to have Magomed Ankalaev take on Ion Cutelaba, the Hulk. And in this one here, I think I had Cutelaba in the first one, but I'm going with Ankalaev again. So Ankalaev did win their first contest. Kind of a weird stoppage. Seemed like Cutelaba was trying to bait him into thinking he was almost knocked out, even though I think he was maybe almost knocked out. And they ended up calling the fight while Cutelaba was still looking like he was kind of out on his feet. I don't know. It's a weird fight. Go back and watch it. I think Cutelaba, though, is not going to have the skills this time around. I don't think he's going to be able to bait Ankalaev. I don't think he's going to be able to use any of that. I think Ankalaev has all of the tools to defeat a brute like Cutelaba. He ain't called the Hulk for nothing, and I think he possesses the skill set to outdo the Moldovan. In this one, I am picking Ankalaev to pick up a win in this contest. All right, we're going to skip the debuter, and we'll cover those at the end. The next one, though, is going to be Mallory Martin taking on Hannah Shockwave Seifers. And in this one here, I think it is going to be a close fight. This is a really tough call to make. Both of these ladies have kind of limited information on them. Obviously, Seifers been around a little more time, but Mallory's just 6-3. Seifers 10-6, and so I'm not super confident about this pick, but just, I want you to keep that in mind. I am going, though, with Mallory Martin in this one. Seifers has been on the slide, 3 losses in a row. Angela Hill, Mackenzie Dern, Agapova, and we look over at Martin. She did lose to Virna Janarova, but I think her maybe, she just wasn't ready for that level of talent yet. She was on a 5-fight winning streak coming into the UFC, and I think that she's going to find her feet here. I think Mallory, despite losing in her first outing, is going to be able to pick up a win here. She looked okay against Villanueva, though. I mean, she just has great submission. She was able to pick her up with a rear naked choke, and I just don't see Seifers getting that in here. I don't think that she's going to be able to get any submission games on her. She has 5 knockouts, no submissions over her career, and I think mostly this is going to stay on the feet, where I do like Mallory here. We'll see how things play out, though. I am picking Mallory Martin, though, to pick up a win in this contest. All right, in our next one here, we're going to have Zach Cummings versus Alessio Di Sergio. And this one here, I got to go with the Italian Dream, although that's not his fight name. I believe that's Marvin Vittori is the Italian Dream. But either way, this Italian from Rome, we're going with Di Sergio here. I like him as a fighter a bit better than Zach Cummings. Nothing against Cummings. I mean, he's a great veteran of the sport. The guy's been around for quite a while. He's proved to be pretty durable, but he does have back-to-back losses against Murdyov and Holland. And while Di Sergio also has a loss against Akhmedov, I think that he's going to be able to do well against Cummings here. I think that he does have the superior striking. I think he has also the ability to get it to the ground if he really wants to, although Cummings does have, I think, the better submission background coming in here. We'll see how things play out, though. Cummings with a little 1-inch reach advantage, also coming in as a southpaw. We'll see if Sergio is able to deal with that correctly. I think he will, honestly. I think Cummings is a little bit advanced aged, honestly, to still be fighting at this level. Oh, yeah, he's not that old yet. I'm really being too hard on the guy. He's only about 36. So, anyways, we're going to be looking out for a Di Sergio win, though, in this welterweight matchup. Sorry, middleweight matchup. All right, this next one here, I love him. We got Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres taking on Giga Chikadze. And in this one here, I really like Chikadze here. Caceres, he's a solid fighter. He does have 2 wins in a row, but I think Chikadze just looks like a huge talent right now. He's come into the UFC pretty meteoric. He has 3 wins in a row. I think he's going to be able to continue it against a good fighter in Caceres and really prove that he really belongs with at least the middle of the pack of the UFC, chasing the ranked opponents, and I think he's going to be able to pick up a win. I like his striking here. I don't know if I like it more than Caceres, though. Caceres has the flash, though, and so that's what makes me just question if Chikadze is going to be able to deal with it. As long as he's able to, not get drowned in the lights of the flash of Caceres and is able to keep his eyes on the target, I think Giga is able to pick up a win here. Let's see how things play out, though. This is really a dark horse, interesting contest if there ever was one on this card. So watch out for this one is what I'm saying. I'm going with Chikadze, though, to pick up a win against Bruce Leroy. All right, and our last one here before we get to the debuters, Polyana Viana taking on Emily Whitmire. So in this one here, I really want to pick Whitmire, okay? I'm actually kind of torn. I think Whitmire has proven to be the better fighter over her most recent outings, okay? She did lose to Amanda Ribas, but she's an excellent fighter. Whereas when we look over Viana, a lot of potential, 3 losses in a row, though. And right now, because of, I think, Whitmire's limited credentials, she's only 4-3, and she's really improved, I think, over her last couple of fights. It basically says the numbers, Whitmire is going to lose. But being a fan, being a, observer of the sport, I think in my gut, I would honestly pick Whitmire in this one. This is a really hard call to make. I'm going to go with the official numbers here. Viana, that's always the call. We always go with the numbers. But Viana, I don't know if is going to be able to win here. We'll see if the numbers end up being my gut in this one. This one is really tough for me to make a call on. Viana has the physical, I think, attributes to, beat Whitmire. She has a solid 4-inch reach advantage. She does have good striking. She does have some takedown and submission game. She's a good, well-rounded fighter, but those 3 losses in a row make me believe that she probably can't do it, whereas we've seen Whitmire really grow as a fighter over the last couple of years, and I think she is capable of beating Viana, especially how we've seen her perform most recently, though. We'll see how things play out. Just know this one's really split down the middle. You're not going to catch this one on Patreon, trust me. The official pick, though, is Polyana Viana. Oh, my mistake. We actually have one more non-debut fight before we get to them. And that one is going to be Christian Aguirre taking on Sean Brady. So in this one, I don't know too much about these guys, I'll be perfectly honest. I just have the stats here to really go off of. Both of them have fairly limited fights in the UFC. But in this one, I do like Brady just a little bit more. Despite the crazy output we've seen out of Aguirre so far, we've seen Brady mix it in a little bit better with some takedowns and show that he's a well-rounded fighter. Edgar only has 59 seconds total in the UFC so far, so it's hard to say. It's really difficult to make an assessment based on the information we have right now, but I am going to go with Brady in that one. I think he's showcased more skills, and he does have the 2 wins in the UFC over Edgar's 1. So we'll see how things play out, but that's a limited information fight, near debut, I guess, if you will. And then for the debuter fights, we have Ricardo Lamas taking on a product in Bill Algeo. And this one, I like Algeo. I think Lamas' time has kind of come and passed, and we've seen great stuff out of Algeo outside of the UFC. So I am expecting him to make a good, solid statement fighting on the main card in his debut. I have big hopes for that man right there. And then the last one, we have Maki Pitolo taking on Impa Kasanganay. So Kasanganay just recently fought a few weeks back on the Dana White Contender Series, took it to decision. He fought in the Dana White Contender Series twice, and I think maybe he's going to have to stay there because I am picking Pitolo in this one. Pitolo is the kind of guy I think that can exploit somebody that can crumble the pressure. Now, I don't know if Kasanganay can be overpowered by Pitolo, but he's certainly going to try, and he has enough experience now where I think he could honestly succeed. So we'll see how things play out. I want to pick Kasanganay, watching him on the Dana White Contender Series, struggle, finally get that shot in the UFC. But he's given such a hard talent to Pitolo to make his debut, a guy that's really biting down his mouthpiece and going for it with really every shot. It's a tough one, and I got to go with the guy with the experience here thus far, and I got to go with Pitolo. I'm going to go with Coconut Bonds, but that's another tear up of my heart right there in that one. So anyways, let's go over it one more time. We're going to have Rakic, Magny, Grasso, Ankalev, Martin, DeCircio, Chickadee or Jikazi, Viana, Brady, Algeo, and Pitolo to round things out. So, if you'd like to get in touch with the Fighting Spirit Podcast, reach out to me at fightingspiritpodcast@gmail.com, at MMA Fight Picks 01 on Twitter. It's also the Patreon, Facebook, and you know the rest of the drill. If you would like to support the show, head on over to that Patreon description down below and support the show at a dollar amount that makes the most sense to you. I do appreciate it. Anybody that is out there supporting the show, there's always a huge thank you from me out there. And even if I don't say it each and every week, just know that I always am grateful for those of you that are out there supporting the show. It is hugely important to me. And tell your friends, if you are listening and you like the show, please spread the word, Let your buddy know that you like the Fighting Spirit Podcast, and maybe they'll turn me into a good addiction, as they say. All right, so until I speak with you again on the next retrospective instead of fight picks, although let's go real quick what we have coming down the pipe before we close out here, though. There were a couple announcements recently. We're going to have on September 5th, Overeem versus Sakai. Solid, it's just the one fight on that card so far. I'm sure they'll round it out. We have Santos versus Teixeira on the 12th of September. That is the only fight right now. I'd mentioned that one earlier in the show. We have Covington versus Woodley. Huge fight. That's going to be the week before we get to Adesanya Costa on UFC 253. That's going to be an interesting card because we not only have obviously the Adesanya Costa fight, but we have Reyes versus Blachowicz for that vacated light heavyweight title since John Jones decided to go to heavyweight. So interesting stuff there. Nothing really, honestly, too crazy as I look down the rest of the fight card there. Nothing. They're letting Diego Sanchez fight again though, which him and his coach Fabio Maldonado. I wish they would make that guy retire. To be honest, he doesn't seem like he's doing well. But hey, that's just my opinion. And the next one though, October 3rd, we have Holm versus Aldana. Solid fight there. And then to round things out, UFC 254, Nurmagomedov versus Gaethje. And I'm hearing some whistling that perhaps there could be a Poirier versus Tony Ferguson fight on there as well, or it could take place another time in October. That would be interesting, though. I'd actually be really interested to see them fight as the co-main and have kind of like a four-man eliminator out there, which does raise the question, what the hell is Conor McGregor up to? He's supposed to be retired, so I probably shouldn't be asking the question too much, but I would imagine he would at least be able to be motivated to get out of bed to fight Tony Ferguson. So what happened there? I do wonder. Either way, though, solid fights all around. We got some great ones coming into the later part of the year here, and I look forward to them just like you look forward to hearing the picks. And until I speak with you again next time, happy fight picking.